A little while ago, I purchased a bread machine at a thrift store for just $9. And it was something I had never used before, but I absolutely fell in love with having a bread machine. So I went ahead and I bought a brand new bread machine. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the unboxing as well as how to make a very simple bread using a bread machine. Hi everyone, I'm Veronica and welcome to my kitchen. I love sharing easy meal prep tutorials as well as grocery hauls and how to use a lot of different small kitchen appliances. So if you're new to my channel, welcome, and I hope that you like this video and subscribe for more. All right, so let's dive into my new Panasonic bread machine. But first, check out my old bread machine. Here is a picture of it. It is a Panasonic bread machine that was about 15 years old, and I purchased it for just $9 at a thrift store. So if you've never purchased a bread machine before, maybe check out the thrift store to see if you could score one for really cheap to get you started. But if you're like me, then you are most likely gonna fall in love with your bread machine and want a brand new one just to make sure that it works every single day. After I started making bread every single day for my family in the bread machine, my worst nightmare was the bread machine one day just not working. So that's why I did go ahead and buy a brand new one. And then I ended up giving my old one to my cousin, who's also going to be experimenting with bread machine recipes. So now I kind of actually have a buddy to do bread machine baking with. So I found the Panasonic bread machine, and I didn't buy it for any specific reason other than the price. But after I looked up a lot of the reviews for that one on Amazon, I realized actually this is a really high quality bread machine. So they have recently come out with a new bread machine by Panasonic. It's pretty similar, but it actually has a lot of updated features. And the new one comes in a black and stainless steel look, which actually matches a lot of the appliances in my kitchen, so I really appreciate that. This new one has a lot of different features, and it has like this digital display. On the side there, you can see all of the different options that come with this bread machine. So you can bake bread, gluten-free bread, you can make doughs, you could even bake quick breads in here. You can use this to make sourdough starter and so much more. There's, I think, about 20 different functions on this Panasonic bread machine. So when I opened it up, I just plugged it in and I just started exploring all of the different menu options to get acquainted with all of these features. On the old Panasonic bread machine that I had, which was about 15 years old, there was a lot of different options that were more antiquated. And in this new updated Panasonic bread machine, I really like some of these new additions that they've added, like being able to adjust the number of minutes that you knead the dough. There's a lot more manual functions. You can also do jam with this one. You couldn't do that with the other one. And it actually comes with like a little sourdough container that you could put inside of this so that you can make your own sourdough right here inside of the bread machine. So I really liked that feature as well, because sourdough, I really love doing sourdough, but it's kind of a hassle, and sometimes my kitchen isn't actually hot enough to make sourdough starter. So I really like that I can use the bread machine to make the sourdough starter as well. Now, something that I found super useful was looking through the manual here. I did that with the old one as well as this one, because each cycle has a different kneading time, resting time, rising time, and it gets a lot. And actually the manual will tell you exactly how many minutes for each function that it will do a rise or a knead or things like that. So it's really helpful for getting acquainted. I actually spent a lot of time going through the manual in the first one because I really had no idea how to use a bread machine, and dedicating some time to going through that manual really helped me in quickly learning how to use it. So, like I said, I was baking bread every single day, almost using that bread machine that I first purchased. So, I really developed a knack for one of the basic recipes that I found in that manual of the first machine. And it was just a basic French bread that I made using non dairy butter, a little bit of yeast, some salt, and some flour and water. So, I'm going to share with you right now how I make that really basic loaf. It's kind of like my everyday loaf. And you can use all-purpose flour or whole wheat flour or a combination of both of those flours to make this bread. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to put the bread machine canister on top of the scale, then turn it on so that it starts at 0. Then I add 400 grams of flour. Then I add 10 grams of salt, 300 grams of water, and 3 grams of active dry yeast. I like to use the Bob's Red Mill active dry yeast as well as the Bob's Red Mill organic flours. I use their whole wheat flour, and then they also have a all-purpose flour that's organic. Now, one little trick that I found is that I actually have a jar that I keep in my cupboard at room temperature with water mixed with salt in the ratios that this bread requires, so that all I have to do is basically pour a certain amount of that water and salt mixture. And I really like this because it makes the water dissolve the salt. So you have like a salty water instead of adding the dry salt. But that's just kind of like something I came up with. So you don't really have to do that. But combining the salt and water together is kind of like one little speed up trick that I have for making this bread recipe. Then all I do is I pop that canister back into the bread machine. I set it on basic mode with a light crust, and then I push start and it makes the bread for you. You don't have to do any kneading. You don't have to get any dough on your hands. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to transfer it to an oven to bake at a separate temperature or separate container. You just put it all into the bread machine and push start. And in 4 hours, I have this basic bread loaf ready to go. And as you can probably hear in the background of this voiceover, there's a lot going on in my house, and I really did try to make bread by hand in an oven for a very long time, but I kept getting messed up because I'd start a bread loaf, and then, you have to come back and knead it after a little while. You have to come back and cover it and put it in the refrigerator and do all this different steps in making bread. And I ended up burning the bread or overproofing it, and it just got so frustrating. So having this bread machine really honestly has been a game changer for me, because look at right now, the dough is being kneaded by itself in this little machine. I'm not even touching it. And look at it's rising on its own. I'm not having to come in and make sure that it is rising properly. I'm not having to make sure that it's not overproofing. There's a lot of steps when it comes to baking bread. And without this bread machine, I honestly wouldn't be making my own homemade bread, because there's just too much going on in my house to really pay attention to like a little loaf of bread. But now that I have this bread machine, I can just make bread for my family all the time. And it just feels so great to be able to nourish my family with homemade bread like this. Okay, and so here's what the bread looks like right before it's about to start baking in this bread machine. It's done its final rise and it's actually formed its final shape. And then now I'm going to share with you exactly what the bread looks like as it is finished baking in the bread machine. And voila, there you go. There's a beautiful loaf of homemade French bread that I made with organic flour, natural ingredients, and I didn't even touch the loaf. I literally just put everything into this little bread machine and I push start. So I just take the canister out of the bread machine like this with an oven mitt because it is hot. Then I release the bread out of the little pan here, and then it comes out. There's one little thing that might not be as appealing is this hole in the bottom of the bread, which is where the paddle attachment was. I believe you can actually take the paddle out before baking, but I don't like touching the dough, so I don't even bother with that. And I honestly just don't even notice it. It's not really like a game or deal breaker for me. So yeah, this is the loaf right here. It's nice and fluffy. It's got a nice crust. You can bake it with a darker crust if you prefer, but I do use the light crust setting. I like to cover the loaves in a towel to cool instead of putting them on a cooling rack. I found that this just helps keep the moisture inside of the bread, and it keeps it nice and tender and helps it cool properly. Once the bread is not hot anymore and it's not even really warm, I like to wait till it's pretty much mostly room temperature. Then I remove that cloth, and then it's ready to go for slicing. Now, you can slice the bread right out of the oven pretty much, but it does change the final effect of the bread. So if you're not going to be eating the bread right away, I would suggest making sure that it is cooled down. It takes maybe about an hour to cool down totally, but there you go. There's my easy French bread recipe prepared in my Panasonic bread machine. So I did purchase this bread machine brand new on Amazon. It was $299, which is a great deal because it actually is going to be saving me so much money on store-bought bread. Well, I hope that you like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you have a great day. Bye.